All right, well, that's fine. It's 10:03. Well, listen, it's 10:03, and maybe people wander in from the yard sale or just come a little bit later. But I want to welcome everybody here today on behalf of the Poland Historical Society. And thank you for coming out on this beautiful Saturday morning. I couldn't ask for better weather as far as I'm concerned. And let me have my 5 minutes of fame here because I got a couple of announcements to make. One is I got coffee brewing, tea, water's there, we got punch. So please don't not ask. I'll get it for you, or just ask somebody to help yourself too. Steve Barrow brought in some blueberry cake. It's there, and afterwards we've got strawberry shortcake for everybody. So if you stay and enjoy this. Talk fast, right, Nancy? So anyhow, I want to couple thanks to Zach Mahar provided the electronic equipment, so we're recording this. Because this is a really, I think it's a unique event, and I'm really pleased that we have the Lothrop family here. And we also have, I'll call you a guest star if you don't mind, Byron Stroud is here too, a contemporary of Louise Roberts. So thank you for coming. I know it ain't easy as you get older, I get that, but thanks for coming out. And so, and please, Byron, anytime you got anything you want to chime in, if they say something that you know is wrong, please, stop them dead and maybe make her something up, okay? And I want to make sure we get it right. Yeah. And also, the strawberry shortcake, Dr. Steve Kinney donated the strawberries and the shortcake and the cream. And so, and so everything is fine there. So I just want to set a little, I guess, a little history, a little background, if you will, to set the stage, if you will. It's 2024. I've been in Poland 40 years, yeah, I guess it's 40 years this year. I'm not Polish, I didn't come from here, from Bangor, but anyhow. I've got a question too, by the way. If you're from Poland, what are you? You're not Polish, what do you call yourselves?
We don't really call ourselves Polak, I don't know.
People from Poland, right? Not a Poland or anything like that, okay.
American.
There you go, American.
Poland, Maine, not Poland and local.
Correct. Well, we had a couple from Poland come here one afternoon, one Saturday, it was hot. I was ready to leave, and this couple comes in, and I welcomed them, and they had an accent. I said, "Where's your accent from?" "We're from Poland." I said, "Oh, really? Well, look," and they came here thinking it was a Polish community. So good luck if you can find pierogies and whatever else, Polish people eat. But they're very nice. They lived in Chicago for 25 years, and they were in Maine for a week. And they love Maine. Two things they mentioned: a lot of woods. Exactly that. And the other thing they mentioned, I'll just say because it's true, and that's no black people here. They saw no black people. I said, well, yeah, there are. You just have to look a little bit further. But anyhow, very nice. And I showed them around. I sent them over to the Poland Spring. But before they left, they said, why don't you stand in front of that sign over there? Welcome to Poland. And they did. And I said, send it to your friends and family back in the old country. But they're really nice. And a few words of Polish that I knew I shared. But I was here 40 years, but go 40 years beyond that. 80 years ago, 1944. What was it like here in Poland in Maine, 1944? Can tell, who was the president in 1944? That's an easy one. Roosevelt was. America was at war, of course. And at the time, the population of Poland was 1,441, the 1940 census. Anybody expect, I know Judy, you know, because we discussed it the other night. Anybody expect that if the population of Poland is today, 2020 census?
No, what is it?
Well, 6,000.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes.
About 59 and change. So that's a lot of growth. And very few people remember what Poland was like 80 years ago, 70 years ago, 75, when it was a town of 1,500 people. Now, for a prize, who was the governor of Maine in 1944?
Is it on that thing?
Yeah. No, it was Sumner Sewell. It was from Bath, Maine.
Okay.
Did a little research on Sumner Sewell. The man was a fighting ace in World War I. Incredible story that he won the Croix de Guerre. Sumner Sewell. And in those days, the governor had 2-year terms.
Oh.
So he did 2 and 2. So he was our governor from 1941 to 1945. Let's see, going back a little bit. Oh, so the other thing I did is I picked up the town report for the year ending February 1944, so essentially the 1943 town report. It is online if you ever want to look at them. Judy was telling me that this is Folkler Library at the University of Maine asked for our town reports, and they've digitized them. You can read the whole town report. Very interesting reading. And the first thing I want to mention is that on the first page, after it says town report for year ending February 1st, 1944, was an honor roll. Don't forget, America was at war. And I counted 122 men and women in the armed services just from this town. That's a lot. And when you think about the population of 1,400, that's about 8.5%. I'm talking men, women, and children, 1,441. 8.5% of them were fighting in the armed services.
Back then, was it mandatory that boys serve back then?
Well, you had a draft. You had a draft, unless you were exempt for whatever reason. So that's a lot. Of course, the names are posted up by the town hall over there. So anyhow, some names. The selectmen in 1943, 1944, they called selectmen, assessors, and overseers of the poor. These names should ring a bell. Hobart Kilgore.
And he owned the fiber mill in Hackett's Mill, Hobart Kilgore. Well, he was superintendent. He didn't own it, he was superintendent of that mill. Yes.
Wow, interesting. And then J. Alden Chipman, from the Chipman family. Myron Strout, family member? Myron?
Yeah.
Okay, Myron Strout. Tax collector, Raymond Waterhouse. Clerk treasurer was C.C. Mitchell. I assume it was a man, C.C.
Alice Mitchell.
Road commissioner, Ben Davis.
Yep.
School committee, now we see here's some female names. Elsie Keene.
Related.
Oh, okay. Ida Grant. Roger Gowell. That was the school committee. The superintendent of schools in 1943.
Mr. Driscoll.
There you have it. F.E. What was the first name? It's F.E. It says F.E. Frederick. F.E. Driscoll.
Was Mr. to me.
And you want to speculate what his salary was in the town report? His salary for being superintendent of schools, $526.69 for the year. By the way, the total teaching staff of Poland annual salary collectively $11,000.
Wow.
Someone got paid $500 to $600 a year. Constable, the health officer was George Pulsifer. Constable was George Belair. Now the sealer of weights and measures, that's an interesting job, the town of William O. Johnson. And one of the big items on the agenda that year on the town meeting was closing schools. They were discussing should we close schools in Bailey Hill, Herrick Valley, Hardscrabble, and White Oak Hill. These are all one-room schoolhouses, I suppose. And the attendance at this school at the time was, which I guess was over there, 24 students.
Right.
So that sets a tone of what Poland was like, per the record. But I'm going to allow now the Lothrop family to tell us what things were like, what your memories were like. And I've got some questions laid out. But the first thing, if you would, is introduce yourselves, tell us a little about yourself and your family. And then probably, maybe Louise, I'll ask you about your parents. We'll take it from there, okay?
Right.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Do you want me to stand up?
Well, if you like, it's all your call.
No, sit down. Sit down. Okay. Well, we are the family. Do you want me to introduce them first?
Whatever you
Yeah.
like.
My sister Ruth, Beryl, Diane Cordell, Roger Lothrop, and Nancy Knowlton. And this is the way we were born, from the oldest to the youngest. I want to say first that we're all happy to be here today. It's nice that we were asked to be up here to give our history, and I hope we can carry it on. I hope that there might be Strouts or Keens or the names that are so familiar in town that we could have another history after we have completed this one. All right.
You didn't introduce yourself, did you?
Oh, I'm Louise Roberts, Lothrop Roberts, and I have lived in Poland. My husband was in the military, so I've lived here all my life, but I went away for 20 years, so it came back in '70, and we bought our home. Our house is this house right here. This is my house that is on the Everett Road, and it was built in 1906. So we have restored it a little bit, so it looks a little better than that. But this was the farmhouse that we were all raised in, right next door to my house. My house was built for the son and daughter of the Everetts that lived in that house. So, and we'll tell you about a little more. That house burned, but we'll talk about that later. In the year that it was burned, I think probably Nancy or Roger might discuss that.
Oh, I remember.
My mother and father, of course, Viola and Harold, and this was their 50th anniversary picture in 1978. So, and they were married, I don't know how many years, I can't remember, but Dad died at 85.
They were married in 1929.
29.
Mm-hmm.
Mother died at 91. So I have reached that point and going on now, so maybe I'll live a little longer and outlive her. But, and then this is my graduation. My husband and I and sisters and brothers, and this is a picture. Nancy said she didn't have very many pictures of herself, so I brought one of Nancy, Diane, and myself in 1950, where we were sitting on the grass. Yes,
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 1950, and that's my daughter asking the question back. So I have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. No, I'm not sure of that, because I have 7 great-grandchildren.
It changes every day.
Yeah, I have 7 great-grandchildren. So anyway, what I want to start saying is how remote this town was, how very small town, as he said, with only 1,500 people. And on our road, we only had 4 houses. And we walked to school to the this is the way it went. We started school at Bailey Hill because we're halfway between Bailey Hill and Harris Hill. And the superintendent, Mr. Driscoll, came one day and told my parents that there were not enough students at Harris Hill, and he was going to break up our family. We 4 or 3 at that time. Were going to go to Harris Hill, and because there were too many in Bailey Hill. So that's why we changed over from one school to the other. I started school when I was 4 at Bailey Hill School and kept on. And anyway, but Poland was really, really remote. And you know, we didn't have a good car. Keep in mind, I was born in 1933, and my father did not have a very good car at all until the 40s, I guess. But I want to go back to this era. When I was born, and we lived at Minot Corner, right across from the Minot Corner Grange Hall on the river. We lived on the river road. And in 1936, we had a very bad flood. And there are pictures here in the vault of the flood of 36. So we had to evacuate. We could not live in that house. And it was right on the edge of the river. So my father heard of a house that was empty on Bailey Hill, right next door to Ruth's house on Bailey Hill. And we lived there, and maybe during that year, my father and mother learned that the farmhouse, that farmhouse belonged to the R.J. Everett farmhouse, and it was empty and they could buy it. So they did. And they paid $2,500 for it. And it was so hard for my father. He didn't have good jobs in those days, and they had a very difficult time paying that mortgage. But they did and managed somehow. But that is where we all were raised from thence on in that house. And then it did burn down. So I'll have, who was 1948? Who was?
Fred.
No. But I mean, who who knows more about 1948 than I do?
I was only 6 years old.
Okay, all right. Anyway, the day that it burned in the springtime.
I'm going to say
March.
something about
Yes.
that house.
Yeah, I will. Okay, chime in.
No, I'll wait.
Okay,
I'll
all right.
wait till my turn.
We were in high school. My brother Fred and my sister Arlene has passed away now. By the way, there were 8 of us in the family. My sister Arlene is gone. Earl and Fred are gone. And we were sitting in class at high school, and the alarm sounded, the fire alarm. Well, it always kind of upset us when we heard that out-of-town call, because you don't know, fires were very hard to control in those days. We did not have a Poland fire department. It was all volunteer. And so the fire department, we heard the noise, and my brother was in study hall behind me, and he looked at me and he said, pretty soon the superintendent came in, and he told the teacher that he wanted to talk to the Lothrop kids. And so we went up, and he said that our house was on fire, that he was going to take us home. And so Arlene, Fred, and I got in his car. Mr. Driscoll was a wonderful superintendent. And I will add that he was always bringing supplies to us. We didn't have pencils, very many. We didn't have paper. And we did not have books. We did not have the Poland Library. So it was the way they did in those days, one school would accumulate a few books from some source, and they would let their children read them and then pass them on to another school. So Mr. Driscoll would have a whole armful of books, and he'd bring it in. And Mrs. Lane was our teacher for almost all the years we were there. And every day at 1 o'clock, she would read us a story out of one of the books, and that got us very interested in reading. And sometimes we would ask, could we take that book home to continue the story, or just keep on reading other books. And so
I'm going to interrupt because I'm going to save
Yeah.
the school stories for a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a couple of questions here. So if I could I turn it to Ruth? Ruth, do you have something you want to add on before we go?
To what?
do you want to chime in on our school?
Well, on anything, because the schools I'm going to hold off a little bit.
Oh,
so
yeah.
just a little bit down the piece. But do you have anything, Ruth, you want to tell us about your family and
Oh, yeah. In the old days, our family, do you remember anything?
and
about-
your own family? I know
And
you're
your
Steve.
baby.
I know you're Steve's mother, but that's about all I know. So.
But you know, I am going to let her do a lot of talking
Okay,
when I
great.
finish.
Okay, absolutely.
So
Prefer to do it that way, that's
she'll
good.
bring it forward.
All right.
Got it midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Well, then I'll ask my question for you then, Louise.
Okay.
What became of Mr. Driscoll? Did he retire from Poland, and did he live in Poland? Did he
He
move
lived in
on?
Mechanic Falls.
Uh-huh.
But,
But Mechanic Falls, Louise.
Well,
He lived in Mechanic Falls.
Yes, that's what it said.
He lived right across
Okay.
from the Maple,
Oh,
the cemetery.
oh, I did not know that. Oh, see, she had the answer. That's good.
Okay.
But I do not know, but I do have to tell you this, folks, about our school. We had a music teacher, and he came in, Mr. Lamb, and he played the violin, and he would, probably he came once every other week, maybe.
Mr. Lamb.
Mr. Lamb,
Mr.
yeah.
Lamb.
But he taught us a lot of singing, music, to read music and to sing. It was great. And then we also had another lady that came,
Miss Pearson.
Miss Pearson, that taught us religion.
Yeah.
Really?
How about
Yes.
that? Yeah, and she had her easel and all of her,
She had all the characters with flannel backs.
yeah, flannel
And she'd tell
bags.
stories about
She
the
told
Bible.
us the whole, and we learned a lot of the psalms, you know,
Ten
nice
Commandments.
psalms.
And all the holidays, we would put on a program and dress up just like they used to. They wouldn't let us do that nowadays. You know, it was really fun to do that.
Yeah. We had a wire at our school classroom, a wire across, and we put a curtain up. And we would put on plays, and we would recite poems. We would, you know, we had celebrated different times of the year and invite our parents to come, and we would close that curtain, and we thought that was so secretive. It was so fun. And we'd step out and recite our poem or put on a skit. And it was really a good, school was fun, even though it was small and we didn't go very far. I did not come to Poland Corner very much. If we did, we walked. And that was far for us. It was quite a few miles.
There
to
was
come.
never a snow day.
That's
Never
right.
a snow day.
Never a snow day
Snow
at
could be
school.
20 feet deep.
We walked 1 mile back and forth
We had
every day.
1 mile every day we walked.
Yeah. And I don't remember.
And we were 4 years old.
Yeah.
That's a long way for
Right.
4 years
So
old.
small.
That's a long-
Now, getting back to the family, we were extremely poor, extremely. If we had enough to eat, we were lucky. And, but we had an aunt, an aunt, Aunt Margaret, and she was she had had polio, and she was confined to a wheelchair and did not have children. She lived on Turner Street in Auburn, and they would come out to visit us every Sunday, and she would take our sizes, and she sewed a lot, and knit, crochet, and she would sew each one of us girls a dress, two or three dresses.
Grain bags.
Yes.
Grain bag.
Grain bag. And she she loved ordering from the Sears catalog. So she would take our sizes, and in the fall and spring, we had new underwear, and she knit, and we had scarves and sweaters and mittens and socks. And we weren't cold walking to school. I can never remember being cold. Do you? I don't remember being cold. But anyway, it was wonderful that we had her, because without her we would have suffered a lot. We probably would have had hard times, but that was great. Now I'll let Ruth was next to me. She's 2 years younger. So continue about your baby girl.
Okay, I'm Ruth, and my husband was Ozzie Darrell. And I had 3 children, and that's one right there. And
How many grand?
and I had 5 grandchildren. And what else am I supposed to say?
And do you have great grandchildren?
I had I had 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and 5 great grandchildren. So I got quite a family. And let me see.
Both our husbands passed away almost the same time.
Yeah.
Don will be gone 3 years in
Yes,
August.
October, my husband died October
Yeah.
21,
Yeah.
and he was in her class. And
Yes,
Byron's
her
class.
husband was in my
Now,
class.
you remember Ozzie, don't you? Yeah.
And Byron was in our class.
Yeah.
Yes.
You had a camp on Thompson Pond, remember that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, okay.
What did Ruth? What did your husband do? What was as you were raising your family? What did you do?
What's that, what did he say?
What did your husband do for work?
Oh,
And
God.
when you were young?
He was a salesman.
Well,
Oh, okay.
he was a food salesman all his life.
Okay.
He had a lot of different jobs.
Made the rounds.
Yeah. Oh, he was a.
Was it Cisco? Did it become Cisco or?
Oh, yeah, but he used
I
to
don't-
work for, well, first it was Stern, then McCann, and then, what's the guy over in Martin? And the last job was at Martin's over on 85 in, where's 85 past? Somewhere like that. And just as they got ready to, he built a huge building. And just as they got ready to move into it, it burned flat.
Oh.
So that was that. So he retired.
Oh.
And then in the summertime, he'd go work over at Clayton Strout's Marine.
Marina.
In the summertime. For a few summers he did that until I retired. I retired in '99.
Tell her what you did.
What did you do?
Tell them what you did.
I was a dental assistant. Oh, I was everything in the dental office. I worked for Dr. Bartlett, and well, at first I worked at Job Corps. I worked 12 years in insurance, the Dunlap agency, and then I went over to the Job Corps. Remember the Job Corps at Poland Spring?
Cold Spring.
Well, I worked there from '66 until '69, I think. Was it '68 or '69? And they closed down. And about that time, the Community Health Center
Was built.
was building on an addition for a dentist. And that worked out wonderful for Dr. Bartlett, but it wasn't quite ready yet. So I had a a few months of retirement there. Then we went down to the health center, and I worked for Dr. Bartlett for 31 years.
Wow.
And then Dr. Wiegand took over Dr. Bartlett's office, and I stayed there 2 years. I got him going pretty good. So that was, and I retired in '99. Yeah.
What did you do at the Job Corps?
I worked for Dr. Bartlett.
Oh, he had
I
a,
worked there with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just kept going down to the health center. Yeah. That was a good deal. And then, let's see, what else? Then I went to school. I was 4 years old when I started school, and I walked all the way, a mile,
Uphill both ways.
back and forth.
No, it was pretty level.
Because we were little kids. I mean, we weren't big kids. We were little kids.
No, well, a lot of times she'd like to follow me, but I didn't want her to because she was way behind me about 4 years.
always behind.
She always wanted to trace along wherever I went. Because I had a good friend, Jeannie Lane. I don't know if you remember Jeannie Lane. Jeannie
Jean Lane, Benson.
Benson.
Yeah.
She was my best friend. And
I used to take
oh my God, I stayed over, we played, she had a nice little playhouse. And after school, a lot of days, instead of going home, I'd go over there, we'd play house until, some days I didn't get home until almost dark. I almost didn't dare to go home at night, because I knew my father would be really upset.
Can I add, was there lunch provided at the school?
No.
How did you have your lunch hour? How did that work out?
We took our
You know what?
lunch.
Round lunches.
Oh, yeah, we took a lunch when we was little, but a lot of days, we'd even go home at noontime, that whole mile, and eat, and go back again.
Yeah.
I mean, we really did a lot of
Let me just hone in on this. You can talk about water. Mr. Lane built the fire, brought the pail of water, and we had one of those round glass jugs, and with a spout on. He filled that every day, and we had a cubicle on the one side with
Bookcase.
all our cups.
It's like a bookcase with our
Like
glasses.
a bookcase, yeah, and we all had a cup. And if we wanted water, we'd go over there and get it, and that was our source of, and then in the fall, Mr. Courier had the farmhouse behind the school, and he'd bring us apples every day. And we had lots of apples. We were healthy there.
How many children at the school, more or less, at the
that's
time?
right. I would say,
Well, there was 3 or 4 to a
20.
class.
I only had 4 in my class.
yes, 4 in mine.
6 or 8.
I think about, I don't think there were more than 20, I know it was 27.
Yeah, there must have been 8 grades, so 8
Yeah.
times 4 would be 32.
Yeah, but that'd be too, no, I don't think we
Each
had.
class must have had 4.
While we're on the subject,
Yes,
think
and-
about this. They had grades kindergarten through 8 in that one room. This teacher was teaching all of us. And she never had a problem with us being noisy because we had to be working on our work in the back of the
We
room.
learned from the
That's
And we
right.
learned from the other kids too, listen
Yes.
over the
She
time.
could
And-
take a group of kids up front when it was a math
When it was time
time
for
or
that,
reading
with that
time.
grade.
And the rest of us would be way back there, and we'd pay attention to our own self. We didn't even bother.
I think that's why we have such a focus
Yeah.
in our lives. We've always been that way.
Yeah.
We could stay
Nancy, talk
concentrate.
about your 4th grade class, your 4th grade.
I didn't go to 4th grade.
I know that's what I want you to say.
Well, I can tell that when it comes to my turn. I don't.
Oh, you don't want to right now?
Well, I will. I mean, it's quick and fast. It's just that I went to school
When she gets
when I was
to-
little. They let me go to school with my sisters and my family because I was ready, and it was like a babysitter for my mother. So I went there, and I think I say 4, but she said 5. But anyway, I started about when I was 4. But I went there until I was in the 3rd grade, and then when my teacher said, "You're going to go over to
Fair lawn.
over Empire Grove, Empire School, over on the other side of Poland." And she says, "You're going to go from the 3rd to the 5th because you don't need to go to the 4th grade because you're ready to go in the 5th grade. So that's what I did, and then when I got over there, that was fun because it was Georgie McKnight.
How'd you get there?
I don't even remember. I don't, honest to goodness, I do not remember. I didn't walk from there.
There was the Fairlawn Golf Course,
Yeah.
near there, the schoolhouse was.
Well, it was near Roger Gowell's, right?
Yes.
Yes, it was. It was right next to
Yeah.
his place. Yeah.
And, but I don't know how she got there.
I don't either. I don't even remember. All I know is it was fun. We used to do square dancing and we used to have it was fun over
When
there.
it come time to go to high school, we didn't have transportation of any kind. You had to
We
do it on
had-
your own.
it was a
You walk-
difficult
Many a day I walked from Mechanic Falls home.
But
Yes,
I
Many a day.
I thought the
All the way
both of
from
you
Mechanic
stayed in
Falls
Mechanic.
home.
we did.
You
They did.
Yeah, we'll bring that up.
But
Yeah.
I stayed, well, that's where I met my husband. His mother was very sick all the time. And
How
we
old
lived-
were you, Ruth?
We lived right near the school, the high school. So I took that job, but they wanted somebody to help her. And so that's what I did. I had to live somewhere. But I lived in a lot of places. I lived in another place before that. And, you know,
Ruth,
you had to find your own way. You
Ruth,
just didn't have
how old
any-
were you? How old were you when you did that? How old were you when you went to the...
12 or 13.
Yeah.
When I was in the freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
Because I started to go with my husband when I was 13, because I lived there. And I went with him all years, and then I married him. And I was married for, we were gonna celebrate when he died. If he'd have lived, 3 more weeks, we would have celebrated our 69th anniversary.
Wow.
That's pretty good for a guy.
And I'll tell you about I forgot to tell you before, when our home burned in 1948, I had a chance, it was just a miracle. I had a chance to go to Mechanic Falls. There was a family that wanted a girl to come in, take care of their 7-year-old boy,
Oh.
who, by the way, is Fred Jordan, and he's a doctor. And I lived with them. The house they built was brand new. Kippy was Clifford, his name was. He was in the lumber business, and they built that lovely home. But they wanted someone to live in, take care of the boy, and clean the house all the time. So that's what I did all my 4 years, because I had no way to get back and forth. And my dad was in the process of building the house. Now, I want to go back and say this. When the house burned, there were about 6 carpenters from all over Poland came rushing to my dad, and they said, "We're going to help you build this house." And in about 2 to 3 months' time, the whole house was all ready to live in, except, of course, finishing. So the people were wonderful. I can remember that people brought canned goods. By the way, we had to go over, or my folks did. They went over to Paul Goss's house on the Poland Corner Road. That was empty. And and there were people brought canned goods to my family. I think there were about 250 jars of everything that they brought in to us get started again. But I wasn't there. I was in Mechanic Falls.
How old were you in Mechanic Falls?
Oh, I went there when I was a freshman in high school. Yeah, and I was hoping to go on to school. I wanted to go to Bliss, but the Jordans were having a difficult time. By the way, they went through bankruptcy. She put him right through bankruptcy, so they did not want to spend any money on me to go to Bliss, so I had to go to work. So I did. Anyway, go on now. Do we want to go to?
Well, is she finished?
Are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm Diane, I'm number 6 of this bunch. Franklin Roosevelt was president when I was born in 1938, and the postage stamp was 3 cents. I think the postcard was a penny. We called it a penny postcard.
Yeah.
And I was just a little devil when I started school, and I had Mrs. Lane my whole 8. And I think the alphabet up there was in our school.
Was.
I think.
Oh, yeah, every school.
We had to practice that.
Every Friday afternoon before, it was about 45 minutes before we in the house.
Dismissed.
We had penmanship.
Yes, we did.
And we had to learn to write like that.
Yes, we did.
Today, the kids don't even know how to sign their
They
names.
don't even know good. They don't even
They
teach it.
can't even have 2 columns after college. I know that for a fact because I got a grandson that's done it. But
Oh, yes, your family. How many in your family? Yeah.
my family,
Yeah.
I have 5 children, 3 girls and 2 boys, and I have 9 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. My oldest granddaughter is 48 years old. My oldest great-grandson he's a senior in high school this year. Age, I don't know. But anyway, in 1973, did any of you know Dot Coffin?
Yes.
Sonny's sister. In 1973, she hired me to be clerk at the Poland Spring Post Office. And I worked for her for 12 years. And then I was graduated down the line. I kept transferring offices. But I lived in New Gloucester for 55 years in one house. And then we sold that. And we wintered in Las Vegas for 26 years. I lost my husband, and my second husband, in 2017. And so we traveled everywhere. I've been to 46 states, Alaska, Hawaii, Canada, and Mexico. I've flown across 89 times, and I've driven across 10 times. So I've seen the country pretty much. So now I live in Mechanic Falls. Started there, end up there.
When you was little, did you walk to school?
Well, I did, sort of, because I was so little, and Mama used to put up, my mother, used to put up sandwiches, lunch, and put it in a great big, like a Shaw's bag. And I used to hold it between my legs, and one of the kids would pull me to school because I was so little. But I had the whole lunch, so they had to not help me over because that was their lunch too. So I had them right by now. But anyway,
That was pretty iffy carrying it that way too.
yeah. But it's I had a good life. We helped Mama and my father in the garden all the time. We weeded, we pulled weeds and picked all kinds of string beans and peas and helped her can.
Haying season was really something.
Oh boy, that was really a good time.
You had the horse and buggy.
Yeah, I used to have a horse. My father used to let me rake. Now, of course, the rakes in those days,
Hand.
You saw it had
handle.
to drive your horse with one hand and pull that rake with the other one. Well, I had this horse that I absolutely hated. His name was Jerry. And every time I just slack up on the reins, he'd start to run, and oh my God, I could have killed him many times because he was just awful. And I was saddled with him every hay season. But had a pretty good life. I graduated from Mechanic Falls High School in 1956, and I was married shortly after
How
that.
did you get back and forth?
My senior year, I lived with Barbara and Ken Welch.
Yeah.
Ken was a barber, and Barbara worked at the bank. And I lived with him my senior year because there was no transportation in Poland. So I stayed there and helped them. Every Saturday I cleaned their house. That was for my boarding room. And but it wasn't that awful bad. And then after I graduated, like a dummy, I got married. But that's it. I had a good life. We all had a good life.
I do want to go back and say that we were kind of like two families. My older brother was Earl, and then Fred, and Arlene, and I. And we were the older ones.
Me?
And then it was Ruth
No, I was with you. We're
Well-
only 2 years different.
yeah, but you chummed with
It was
me.
Roger,
Yeah, but
Nancy,
there's
and
4
I,
years
the three of
between
us.
Ann and I.
We're the-
And Ann
Odd
and
couple.
Roger, and it was kind of like, we took care of the young ones. We
You
took,
did?
That's, well,
You
help.
did?
Help.
Gee, I missed out on that one.
Yeah, but you don't know when you were an infant.
Well, yeah, but getting back to the house fire, I think Ruth, myself, and Roger were at the Harris Hill School, And Mama came to the door and told Mrs. Lane not to let us come home because it was pretty bad. The house was, as you can see, it was a beautiful home, and then it had 2 sheds and a huge barn. And the fire started out in the barn, and we had a German Shepherd dog, and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and the dog kept going around the house and jumping up and down. And my mother knew something was wrong, and she opened the shed door, and the flames were already up the back. But in those days, Poland didn't have a fire department, so they had to rely on Mechanic Falls.
It wasn't much.
No, so anyway, they got as far as the house, and they ran out of water. So we had to stand there and watch it burn.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but they got everything out, even the kitchen sink.
They got a lot of
They
stuff
saved
out.
everything,
And
and
it
they
was
ran
a
out of
warm
water.
spring day.
You
Yeah.
remember Paul and Louise Goss, who owned the store right down here? They lived at the store in the wintertime, and they closed that house up on Pole and Connor Road in the wintertime. Well, he came to my folks and he said, I'll open that house up, turn the heat on, you all go there. So that we did, and that was very nice, that we could all be together, because everything was in the hole, you know. A lot of our beds were in the hole when I went home that day. They didn't save 100%.
What caused the fire? Was it
Not at
hay?
all.
Diane, was it
Not
hay?
at all.
Was it hay combustion that caused the fire? What caused the
No,
fire?
electrical.
Electrical fire, okay. Sure.
Most of these farms around here burned because of old, unsafe wiring.
Oh, okay.
I remember many of them.
Wow.
But,
for that reason.
yeah, my father worked in the woods, and he got the lumber out, the logs out of the woods, and Goss's had a sawmill. William Goss had the sawmill.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
you
And he
did.
sawed up all the lumber for my father.
Yeah.
And then Waterhouse, and all kinds of carpenters came forward and helped. It was really wonderful.
Yes.
Can I ask, Diane, you worked for if I heard you correctly, you worked for the post office?
Yes.
Early on, the Poland Spring Post Office. Can you tell us a little bit about that, where it was located and
It was located on, in Poland Spring. Is it what's that big
Ricker.
building now?
Ricker Inn.
The presidential
Yeah,
inn,
but
the presidential inn?
inn,
Yeah,
I guess that's what they call it now. Yes, yeah. I worked a couple of years for Channel 8 TV, but
Oh.
I was having babies too quick. I had to quit.
My mother told her she should have taken up knitting.
Yeah. That was kind of funny, because after having 8 children of her own, when I told her I was pregnant with my 5th one, she said, maybe you ought to take up knitting. After 8 children, now give me a break, Mama. But anyway, I had a good life, and I retired from the post office in 1998. I worked 25 years for them, and I worked all over the place. I was a clerk. But Doc Coffin was a super boss all my life. I went up there for 12 years, and it was fun because we knew everybody. You know, and if we knew where that piece of mail went, we put it there. We didn't send it back for a good address.
There's a message there.
No, it was a good life.
Okay, shall we go to Roger now?
Well, I don't know. Skip me.
You're all tied
I
up
was
now.
an outcast. I left before graduating. I needed an education when I left this place. Didn't know anything about anything. So I joined the Air Force.
Oh,
Believe it or not, going to a one-room schoolhouse had its advantages. When I took the test to join the Air Force, you had to have, at that time, some ridiculous low score to get into the military. You had to get like a 39 or a 40 or something like that to get into the military. I scored an 80 plus or 90 on the entrance exam, so I went into the Air Force and they said, what do you want to do? You can go anywhere you want to go. They sent me to school for a year, and then I foolishly asked to go to Spain. And I went to Spain for 3 years. When I got out of the military, I put in my application to different businesses and got a response from all of them, and went to work for Bendix, where I retired. Became Honeywell. In Honeywell, I worked, started in California, No, started in Colorado, then went to California, went to South America for years, I went to Alaska for 13 years. They sent me all over the world, and I really, really enjoyed it.
What did they do? What was your job?
Electronics. I went to electronics school, but rarely was I a technician. For some reason, they made me boss everywhere I went, and in Alaska, I had 330 people working for me. The only thing I say was good about it is I was the highest paid man there, and it made it fun. All union as well. But anyway, I retired from that, came back and live in Otisfield. I love it over there. We have 8 acres and a view of 3 states.
You forgot about the bed and breakfast.
Oh, I forgot about the bed and breakfast. We moved and started the bed and breakfast in Casco. And my wife worked extremely hard. That's, if anyone here from
It's
the
the
bed and
Pleasant Lake
breakfast
House.
world, you're gonna work hard at a bed and breakfast, I think. Someone will say
Yeah,
yes.
somebody else said.
Someone's gonna say yes. But it was rewarding. I bought the business for a little bit and sold it for a lot, so that was fun. But I enjoy Otisfield today. I love living in the country, love living in Maine. I live a lot of places, and believe me, you cannot find anything better than Maine. You can try.
Amen.
You can find it. Good luck to you. I lived everywhere. It's either traffic, Baltimore, 8 lanes, all going 10 miles an hour. No.
Roger, you were in Alaska, you said 13. Where were you in Alaska?
I was in Fairbanks.
I see.
NASA has a facility 13 miles east highway. They had facilities all over the world. That's what I did. I worked in Ecuador with them.
Well, you mentioned Ecuador. How long were you in Ecuador?
I was in Ecuador almost 4 years, three plus years. And that was
An experience.
interesting but difficult. If you were overseas and in South America, has anyone here been living in South America? Back in those days, there you go. You probably understand what I'm saying. It was interesting. I really enjoyed it, but I also enjoyed coming home in 1970 after spending 3 years in South America. I enjoyed coming home. No place like the States. You can live in Spain.
Yeah.
I lived in Europe for a long time. South America, Alaska, that's good old Maine. It's got to be right on top.
Now, you did get your diploma from the Kenny Falls
Yeah, oh
High
yes,
School.
I got it. Oh, I had to have a diploma right away.
Yeah.
That was a mistake. Jumping out of school and thinking you were going to live, you're not going to live. So I immediately, when I joined the Air Force, I had to have a degree immediately. And I went to school for a long time, and education in electronics was worth its weight in gold, because when I got out of the military, I had no problems finding a job. I mean, I could go anywhere I wanted to go, and that made it really. I'm wondering why we don't do that for the youngsters today. I think we ought to have the draft today, but you may all disagree with me. But it moved me away and let me see my errors
And grow.
and corrected them as well. But I love living in Otisfield. I have a nice view. Be there to the end.
Well, now this is the end.
Well, the beginning.
I forgot a couple of things.
Really, I don't know. My brother and I were really close as kids, because we were the closest age. We used to have a ball. We'd go outside, get up in the morning. I don't know, we weren't very old,
Play all
or
day.
whatever. And our mother never knew where we were. I mean, the neighborhood only had 3 houses. No one ever had to watch us, so we'd go play. We might boil down sap, we might take skis and get out in the pasture and then crow's feet up, because we didn't have any fancy lifts. And you know what we had for skis? We had wooden skis with jar rubbers. That's what we used to have. No ski boots, but we used to have all, didn't we, Roger? We'd play out.
They get cold and freeze and break.
Yeah.
But
We had-
growing up like that had its advantages.
Oh, I loved it. We had fun.
I realized I was uneducated, and as I said, I got educated in electronics. I went through pilot school, became a pilot on my own plane, flew all over the country. I would jump in a plane here and fly to wherever you wanted to go. Learned to fly in Alaska.
And a car. He had a car
Yeah.
And he used to take me to school in an old gray Ford. And that was when we was in high school, because I was only 13 when I went to high school and started high school, because he was already there. But that's how I get back and forth with him. And we wound up in our field one day, missed the corner on the way home. And he had a lead foot.
Only travel on two wheels.
Yeah, that's what he always did.
Fred Lyon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I knew Fred really well.
Yeah.
Fred,
He was a
Fred
saint.
stopped at the house one day and he said, Harold, you gotta slow that boy down.
Well, the next day, he cornered me and said, boy, you're going to slow down.
You
Okay.
are going to slow down. So anyway, Mechanic Falls High School was wonderful. I loved it. I'd go back today if I had a chance to go back to high school, because it was just good. For me, I worked, let's see, our mom worked at AAA camps in the laundry. And that was when I was about 12 or 13. And of course, she took me with her. I'd go with her and work with her during the day. Well, lo and behold, I got a job over there as a waitress, waiting on the campers at AAA camps. And then, of course, I met Ronnie. He was in the kitchen. That was my first husband. I met him when I was 13. I never had any other boyfriend. And I married him. I graduated from high school in '61. I got married in '61. And I went to Central Maine Power Company to work in 1961. And so it was a pretty simple life. I worked for Central Maine Power Company. It was the only job I ever had, the only man I ever had. And I worked for them for 35 years, or 34, and retired in '95. Now, I lost my first husband, Ronnie. He was only 49 when he died. He died in 1990. But we had bought the place that I live in right now. We had bought the land from my parents, and we bought almost 6 acres. And we built a house, we built a log cabin. And because that's still, everything right there is the same thing, only a lot better. But when he died in 1990, I met Roger Knowlton in 1992, and I remarried Roger. And then I haven't been very lucky at that, because he died in 2007. So I've been a widow since then. So
Nancy, can I pick your brain? Because one
You
time I
can.
heard you
It's
say,
very small.
well, we heard a lot about the one-room schoolhouse, but I want to go into high school, because you graduated '61, so you were in the '50s was your teenage years. Were you a Bobby Soxer? What were the dances like
right
at
to
the high school?
right to the hill.
Okay, you had a
every
pool,
weekend.
you had a pool little dress school?
Everything. Yeah, everything. Ronnie and I would go to teen center. They had a teen center at high school. It was fantastic. We'd go there every weekend, and they'd have a pool table, they'd have darts, and the music was wonderful. The most wonderful time in life is that music in the 50s and 60s. I wish my kids could all go back and live during that era, because it was a wonderful time.
Now, then I remember one time you told me that there were dances at the Grange Hall. So
Yeah.
I'm going to just ease into
Oh,
that if
yes.
I could. And then when I come down about the Grange Hall, also I want to include Mr. Strait.
Right.
But yeah, tell me about the Grange Hall dances.
Our
too.
parents, that's what their entertainment was. They'd go to Grange, okay? And of course, every one of us would tag along, because they had to take their kids with them. That was the only place they had to go. So I remember learning to dance on my father's feet. That's how I learned to dance. And then we were always a musical family. We always have been, and we've always loved music. And we always would go dancing, and our parents used to love to go dancing too. But yeah, and that's the way it was. The 50s and 60s was, you can't even, I wish you could live in it, because it was wonderful. It really was. Mike was a classmate of mine, so I think you'd attest to that. When Mike was school, was pretty fun. Yeah, and we're still friends today, all of us that went to school.
You remember
That time.
Mrs. Nova?
She was my teacher, my music teacher.
She was our music teacher. I took lessons from her for 9 years. And she came to our home, and Nancy took from
Yeah,
her
it took
also.
8 years.
I think it was $1.25 for a lesson.
I don't remember.
Let me chime in on that, Aunt. My aunt that I told you about, Aunt Margaret, she was a music teacher, but she was not able to work. So when she would come to visit us, she would say, one time she said, Mom, to my mother, if you would like to have a piano, I will pay all the girls to take lessons. So we three took lessons, and I expanded. When we came back from the military in '70, I studied 6 more years in music. So, but it was the beginning that it was my first music lessons that really inspired me to go on. So, but we were very fortunate. We had our aunt paid us.
Mrs. Long gave her that grand piano.
Yes, yes.
Mrs. Long used to live at the foot of Pole and Connor Hill.
Yeah.
And she gave my mother a beautiful grand piano. All we had to do was have it moved up over the hill.
Well,
It was huge. It was the only thing we had in the living room.
I don't remember how they did it.
Oh, I don't know how it ever got in there, but that thing was
I don't
huge.
remember how
I
it
was
got
there,
there, but it
I
got
did
there.
I didn't get well.
Yeah, I remember Daddy had to.
all I did was practice lessons all the time because I had nothing else to do.
Well, it's a good point, good time, I just want to just turn to Byron Stroud here for a
Okay.
moment, if I could. And now that they've been talking about their school days, could you share with us some of the school days I know you had in common with
I
Lee?
think the school itself, I went to a little school, we had 7 people.
You had how
In the
many?
whole school last year, seven people.
Oh,
And what schoolhouse was that?
It's a White Oak Hill.
Oh, okay.
White Oak Hill. Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, a lot of things they talk about, I can tell, though I did not know them, I still was familiar with the things, because I think everybody in town went about the same thing as far as the schoolhouses and so forth. We always walked to school, and we walked home at lunch, and then we walked back to school. And that way you didn't trouble much, because you were walking.
Right. And there were just no houses in between.
And so much stuff that they've been talking, it's almost like I was there. It was
Yeah.
very familiar.
Yeah.
Well, I really think we missed something by when you have all the grades in one room and you're in a lower grade, say you're in the 3rd or 4th grade, and you're listening to the teacher teach 7th and 8th graders. It's going to catch, by the time you get to the 7th and 8th grade, it's old hat, you know. I mean, you know it already.
Yeah, you've learned a lot.
You learn a lot. When I got to high school, I really had no interest in it
That was one of the biggest things that
because I knew it, and they just couldn't hold.
he got bored.
However, when I left high school, I found out how little I know,
Yeah.
and then you had to go to school again. You know?
Then you had to go
And
to
I went to school almost 2 years, learning electricity and more, the algebra, Boolean algebra, and calculus, which I knew nothing about when I left, and I had fun.
But I'd like to say something about our dad. To me, he was a remarkable man. Never sick, a day in his life, never went to the doctors. I don't ever remember him having a headache. I don't ever remember him saying he couldn't do anything.
You didn't know what headache was.
He didn't even know what it was. And he would go to work, the shift work, his whole life, go 4, 12, 12, 8, all the time.
Tell them where. Huh?
At the Rogers Fiber Company. And he would come home at midnight on his shift. He would go and milk the cows, and he would do his work, and I don't think I ever heard that man complain. He never complained about being poor. To me, I never heard it.
We were poor, but everybody was poor.
He didn't consider himself.
That's right, everybody was
He
poor.
had 100 acres.
Everybody was poor.
He had 100 acres, he had a family, he had everything he wanted.
And plenty
How
of
rich
food because
can
he
you
grew
get?
it. He grew his food. And like you say, but eventually he started selling some of his land off. That's how we got Belanger Drive. We got, Hideaway Road, all those, there was 100 acres he had. So
Can I
he
ask
had,
you mentioned earlier too, now first you mentioned cows and that, you earlier mentioned saps. I'd like to have a little bit of
the
a bit of
farm.
vision about how, did you milk cows? Did you pasteurize your milk?
By
How did
hand.
all
he did it
that
by
work?
hand. He milked the cows by hand.
And then from there, the milk went where?
Yeah.
Shucks.
And I
All of
remember, I remember when I was a
All of
kid.
you worked with udders?
No.
Well, I remember when they used to separate the milk. He had a machine,
Yeah.
this old-fashioned machine, and it had this big bowl on the top, and then it always amazed me how it separated the cream from the milk. And it did it. You just I don't know. I don't know how it worked. Do you?
And now
And
mother
they made
made
ice
butter.
cream and all the
Well,
other
she
stuff.
always made her
And
own
what did
butter.
he do?
Yeah, cottage
And
cheese.
we used to,
Wow.
Used to share the butter. I used to be sitting there with this little butter churn.
you were so little at one time, you pulled the plug on it and the cream went all.
No, I don't. She always remembers me.
And I want to
Did
say,
he
I
sell
would put
butter?
where-
Did he sell milk?
I'm sorry, what?
Did he sell his
He gave it
produce?
away.
I think he
His
gave
milk?
it away. I don't think he sold
but
it.
we did take the butter to Bailey's store, and we had hens, and we would take eggs to Bailey's store was our source of survival.
Oh, and that's one thing Ruth
We bought
forgot
all
to
our
say.
shoes there. too.
Yes.
That's where my husband worked.
He worked there for us. He worked there before he ever worked anywhere else. And you worked there too at Bailey Brothers store.
And he did, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when Gary taught me to cut meat, because the post office was right there in the back of the store. And I worked there, and I'd look over and Merwin was cutting meat, so he taught me how to cut meat. Merwin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That owned the store, that owned the store.
And I remember sitting on the porch with my dad, and we were talking one day, and I said, and Mom was there too. I said, Dad, would you do it all over again if you could? And he said, in a heartbeat, Mom says, I wouldn't. Hey, kids.
And you know, I want you folks to know that I never had a headache. I don't take any medications, and I'm 91.
Yeah, you
So maybe a
Oh,
couple
the
more
gene
years,
is good in this family.
I'll just go to
definitely.
sleep.
I want something what she's having, whatever you're having.
Well, the
Can I-
gene is
can-
pretty good.
Can I ask one of you to talk? Who were your parents and where did they come from, okay?
Oh, well,
Harold and Viola, where did they come from before?
actually, Dad, I want to tell
And
you that.
grandparents, I mean, you can go, you can.
Wait, hold it. I left out one thing.
I'll eat a piece of cake before.
Mother went to Google Academy and she was.
On the floor is a newspaper article, Mom.
Yes, I'll pick that up in a minute, but what did I do with my, oh, I want to tell you that my father's grandmother was an Indian. She was full-blooded Indian. And this is the picture of her. This says, this was the two of them, Grandma and
Is
Grandma.
that Effie Colby?
Colby.
That's
And-
my middle name.
Yes.
That's like granddad
She
would
was
say.
born, well, they lived in Harpswell, is where they lived, and they were, we have 2 or 3 pictures I do of them, and she is buried. We did another member of my cousin, and I did some searching for her history, and she's buried in Brunswick. She in a cemetery in Brunswick, Grammy Colby. So she would be my father's grandmother, let's see, my father's mother's grandmother. So I think that would be about 4 generations, wouldn't it? Back, it was, but however, I may be wrong, because it says right there, that was in 1920 when they took a picture. But she was way up in her 70s or 80s. So I don't know, that's just about, and I think they were of the Algonquin, their history of the nationality, I don't know. I think it was.
But let me pass this on to you. I had my DNA done because somebody did this Ancestry.com thing. I haven't got a bit of Indian in me. So I don't know. I haven't. Not anywhere. I don't know English.
You
I
need to
don't
be on finding your roots.
Well, I hope so because I can get some big
But my
Social
father
Security.
lived, as a young man, they all lived in New Auburn. New Auburn was my father's home.
And mother, where was mother?
And mother-
And mother was
Oh,
Indian.
yeah. Let me talk a little bit. Mom was very fortunate. Her father was a nomad. They traveled everywhere. She was an only child.
Oh.
They even went, he had some sort of a
Rio
vehicle.
Speedway.
Yeah,
Rio
Bill
Speedway.
Rio Speedway.
Rio.
Yeah.
Rio, and he carried,
Speedway.
they took vegetables and fruit and traveled around and delivered it. Now, who we worked for is beyond me, I don't know, but mother went as far, they went to New Mexico and she went to school there. But anyway, Mom went 2 years as a young woman, girl. She went 2 years to Hebron and 2 years to Gould Academy. And she graduated from Gould, didn't she?
Yes.
She has friends that they have had when she was alive. They had.
But we were so fortunate because our mother was a homemaker. And
Yes.
we had to eat our breakfast before we went to school. It was right there for us.
See,
And
me
it
and
was-
the
it
next
was
to the
good food.
youngest, I do not remember ever being considered poor.
No,
or
I don't
even-
either.
Or even thinking that we were poor. We had
No.
everything.
We didn't know any different.
We
Did
did.
Matter of
you-
fact, I remember people
Did
saying
you
that
think
comes
of
that
yourself
Lothrop
as
family.
poor? Did you think of yourself as poor? Were you poor?
We jumped with the boss kids.
We didn't talk about that.
They had eggs just like us.
Yeah,
And had something to eat.
yeah.
And happy, we were happy.
If you had 3 squares a day, a nice place to live, you were warm and comfortable.
Yeah.
My dad
What
said,
else could
how
you
could you be considered poor?
Yeah.
You couldn't be.
It was because, you know, it was so sparsely populated, the town of Poland, and everybody was alike.
Now, those early days, I assume you had electricity, but did you have telephone?
Okay, the telephone, yeah. I remember.
I was
Ring
wondering-
one, ring one.
Tell us about that,
Ring
please.
one.
Ring it out.
We had a black phone, a crank phone.
Was someone listening on it?
And that was, yeah.
The woman that
No,
lived
there were
there.
only 4 people, party line, 4 people on the party line. That was about 1948, I would say.
And you knew what your number was, like if it was 2 rings, you picked it up. The neighbor, if it was 3 rings, be their
It'd
number.
be another name.
And we had another neighbor, she always listened in to everybody else.
The woman that
Woman that
Who
lived
lived in
there.
my house,
Now,
But-
weren't you related to those people? Isn't that
Well,
how they ended up there?
distant, yes.
The Everetts.
The
Grandma was
R.J.
an
Everett.
Grandma was
Yes.
an Everett.
My mother was an Everett, by the way, that's why.
But-
Oh, okay, okay.
How old were you when modern conveniences made its way into your
Okay.
new farmhouse?
We didn't bring that up at all, but we did not have, when Dad bought that old farmhouse, we did not have we did not have hot water at all. And, yeah, a pump is right. And I guess we had electricity.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
We had
don't
2
know,
colas.
but we had the refrigerator.
Coolers are
2
exactly-
colas.
Helps
My
out.
father-
Electricity is what
we
caused the
always,
place to burn.
We had ice.
yeah, he'd go cut ice.
Ice
We
box.
had a big, it was like a silo heat,
electricity,
and
yeah.
he'd fill it with sawdust and bury the ice,
Burned- that's what
and that would
burned.
last all
There was
the,
never-
you know,
I
the.
remember.
And we
A
had a
nice box.
refrigerator,
It
and
had
we put that
box.
hunk of ice in it.
Old,
That's all we had
old
for a
wires.
refrigerator.
Started in the toilets.
Yes.
I can't imagine.
old wires. started-
Well, and then
I think we-
Byron, how will different from your side of town to their side of town? You're close, obviously, to Poland corner. Tell us a little bit about what was going on in your neck of the woods.
I think a lot of stuff was almost identical. And I think everybody had about the same income.
That's why life was so great, because nobody else was any different than we
I
were.
mean, we had some chickens and a cow, and they were talking about, you know, separating the milk and very familiar with doing that, gathering eggs. It's almost spooky, the thing that almost identical.
It's a pretty simple life.
Byron,
though,
how
wasn't
did you get to school?
Walk.
You walked?
And then we walked home to eat lunch, and then we walked back.
Oh, no, I'm talking high school.
Yeah.
High school.
He was in my class, Byron,
Well,
yeah.
who I was supposed to ride with, I don't remember Don or whatever his name was, and he worked in Holland Nights and Olive, but I wasn't an early rider, so I used to miss him a lot. But I could go down our road, go through Gallon Swamp, and get to the 5 Corners, and you could always get a ride with somebody there that would keep going.
Oh,
Yeah.
little hitching. huh?
Yeah, so actually I hitchhiked.
It was a real problem getting to school. It was.
And then, I think the
I
last,
think Judy had a question.
I'll say something.
Yeah.
I think the last
So,
year,
you know, I would grow-
we had a bus.
Go ahead.
There was a bus, I think, the last year.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a little bit of busing.
Yeah, after a few years.
But it didn't last.
They built Poland School in 1955, and I went to the 6th grade when the school was built in the 50s. I went in 56.
How did you get to school after he left?
I have no idea.
Because you must have had a few years.
Maybe a
left.
bus, I guess, I don't know.
Yes, the consolidated school was
Yeah,
built.
consolidated school.
Was it Judy 55?
58, wasn't it?
Listen, I wasn't born until 56.
She wasn't born. 54, is that right, Steve?
I don't know.
54 and
That's what
5?
I
That was my
heard.
feet used to take.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know I
Judy,
went from
do you have a question or
Empire to-
comment?
Well, I wanted them to, share growing up. Your parents would have had gardens,
Oh, yes.
animals. Did they slaughter their own animals? Did your mother can? Did your mother have a bake on a Saturday? I know my grandmother
baked
would
every
say
day.
They would bake, do all their bread baking and everything on a Saturday. You had your day of washing.
Oh, yeah.
with the
Oh,
scrub
washing.
board, you know.
That was fun. She used to have a ring tight washer like
You
this.
had your metal
Yes, a big boiler
tub,
on top of
tub,
the wood stove
You all would,
was always hot.
yes.
Yeah.
And they.
That's how we used to have our baths.
That's right.
Yeah.
Great
Oh, boy.
big huge tub.
And on,
Galvanized,
on,
galvanized
on
stuff.
Sundays, Father used to go out and get a chicken, cut his head off.
Yeah.
A rooster.
A rooster. He cut the head off. And then
We had
that's-
rooster.
we'd
Let
have
it run
to
around the
pick all
neighborhood for a
those
while.
feathers out. Oh.
And so, when you were growing up, we had 3 stores here in Poland, I believe. We had the IGA
Yeah,
down here at the
Yeah.
corner,
Bailey
which
Brothers.
was Paul Goss.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then across from where the Crouches live, there was a store
Oh,
there, I
yes.
believe.
Jordan.
That was E.C. Jordan.
No.
That was your parents, great grandparents.
Mhm.
Yes, E.C. Jordan.
And I know that Earl Martin, he ran that for years.
Oh, yes, yes.
That was half of that. Bill was the son.
Yeah, Earl
I'm
was,
dating myself.
yeah, Earl was the son,
Mhm.
and then he went to work for Public Works, I believe.
Yeah.
But things, it's unfortunate that we had so much here in Poland that is no longer here. I mean, we did have a downtown here. I'm sure you remember, I mean, you must have come through here, whether you say your family didn't have a car, so you must have had a horse and buggy.
Yeah.
Bicycle.
Yeah.
Bicycle
Well,
with
we-
tires
you-
this wide, it was easier to walk beside of it than it was.
We did have our graduation, everyone in all the 8th graders in Poland, we had it right here at the town hall. I have a couple of items with listing all.
Well, that's where I had mine too,
Yeah.
many years later.
Yeah.
And it was always a thing in school. I remember when I went over here to the Fulham Community School, we would put on some wicked good plays. We always had, and we have to learn every word by heart. And we would put it on over here to the town
We
hall.
have variety
And-
shows.
Oh, variety shows that were
Oh, yeah.
unbelievable, yeah.
If
All
you,
kinds of-
if you go to the Grange Hall in Harris Hill and go upstairs and go in the back, you'll find writings on the wall from that era.
Oh, I'm
Way
sure,
all
I'm
over.
sure.
We had
Every time they
dramas.
had a play, someone
We
would
had
put the
plays.
date and the time and
The
comment.
Grange was a center of our family life in a sense because the people, you know, that's when we got to know our neighbors, going to Grange. And we had beautiful dinners on,
Yes.
wonderful. We
We
looked
used to look
forward,
forward to that.
bean supper, bean
And
dinner.
Saturday night dances.
Really, yeah. Well, you know, Roger, 3 months ago to the day, it was March 15th, the Grange held their anniversary event, and, yeah, there was a nice event at the Grange, and you're right, right behind the stage, are all in pencil,
Right.
still there.
Different.
To see.
Still there.
When we had
Yeah.
dramas and plays,
Did you grab a
people
kiss
would
or
write
something?
their name.
And 3 months later, we're here, and just while I think of it, a month from now, I believe it'll be July 15th, the Historical Society's been invited to Empire Grove.
Oh,
So if we can go to Empire Grove that day for a presentation as well as a walking tour, so please join us then. But you know, I'm gonna, if it's 11:15, we can talk forever, but I'm gonna just ask one last question, and I'm gonna invite everybody to stay for some strawberry shortcake, please. But I'm gonna ask everybody, including Byron, please, is who was, besides your parents in this community, who are the most memorable people that you recall growing up that had an influence on you and, you know, who you think fondly of how many years later? So, Byron, why don't we start with you and work your way up? How's that?
I'd have to think about that a lot.
All right, then we'll
I
see.
think it was a lot more than one, a lot more than one person. And I think probably they were neighbors
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Yes, yes.
Well, and you learned brickwork from your Uncle Myron,
Yeah.
who lived at the end of Start Road.
Oh.
Myron, who was on the board
Myron,
back in
right.
1943. I was a selectman now. Huh. Well, let me go to Nancy. We'll come back to you, Byron. And you want to think of somebody that made an impression upon you? It could be a school teacher, a minister, a
I think,
neighbor, a farmer.
like he says, it's a
Grocer.
combination of a lot of people.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it's a lot of my teachers. They had a big influence in my life.
Yeah.
And I thank them for teaching me so wonderfully,
Amazing.
because it gave me the opportunity to have the life that I have. The only thing that, this is kind of off the question, but when we were talking about music lessons and Mrs. Newhook, I took for a very long time from her. And had I not gotten married, and when I got out of school, I was discussing maybe going to the Boston Conservatory, but I never got there. But I'm
But
not
she
disappointed.
plays beautifully.
I'm not disappointed. But you know, Louise, I feel bad about that because, you know, I hardly ever touched the piano. Since I lost my second husband, I don't play. I used to play for him all the
Oh,
time.
nice. Yeah.
But I touch it once in a while, but I wished I would do it more because, you know.
I play for the Granges. I play the piano for, the Grange does not have a pianist and need, and I'm called so many times, will you come and play, will you come?
Yeah.
So I play for the Granges and enjoy it.
After I retired, I did play a little bit for Schooner Estates,
Oh, really?
you know, for entertaining the elderly.
Sure.
And I played for a woman that sang, but it didn't last, only a couple of years. I didn't do that.
And you know, I would look over to Sue. When you go back to school and talk to your teachers, you tell them they got it easy these
Oh,
days
yeah.
in 2024.
That's right.
These one-room school teachers were amazing, from what I can tell.
They were.
How can they teach from K through 8?
Amazing
I mean,
skills. The skills aid for that.
Skills.
You know. So tell your people who they're. So
But of course,
Roger,
the thing of it is, excuse me,
Yeah.
they only had reading, writing, and arithmetic. They did not have to have shop, everything you possibly can imagine, any art. They didn't have to do any of that stuff
Well, we
because it
did
was.
have a little bit of art.
Well, yes, but I mean, it was the basics, you know, you just learned, when you had math, you had to learn it by rote. You had multiplication tables, you know,
Yeah, that's right.
flashcards, you know, and all this
well, you
stuff.
must have some history because every schoolhouse had a picture of
Yeah, they
George
did
Washington,
have
Abraham
history.
Lincoln.
Yeah, they had
Yes, we
history.
did have,
You know,
yeah.
it's what he calls
I mean, the
civics.
basics, the
Mm.
basics.
I
It wasn't
remember
any-
spelling, that was my favorite subject, was spelling.
All right. That's good because we have a test coming up at 11:30. And a spelling bee.
She's gonna have a
Spelling
quiz.
bee. Roger, who do you remember?
I used to be in the spelling bees quite a lot. I'm
Without a doubt.
Lost it now.
Without a doubt, it was my grammar school teacher, Mrs. Lane.
Yes,
Stuff, I think she taught us a lot.
she did.
I didn't finish high school here yet. When I joined the Air Force, I had one of the highest scores. They handed me all the tickets and information for 75 people to take care of to go to Texas. When I got to Texas, it got worse. When I graduated, the first thing I did was go. Every job I had, when I would show up, I'd say, "Who's the boss? Who's the boss?" Wrong question.
And it was that way with me at CMP too. I mean, I worked.
It was me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I ended up having a great time with
Your profession.
Bendix and now Honeywell, who pays my salary.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
I know your handwriting
Oh, I
has
was-
always been one of the things I can't believe how beautiful it is. Her handwriting that she
Yeah.
said that they practiced in school.
Well, I did practice it, but my handwriting is pretty.
Hers is beautiful.
Yeah,
to
well, I
this
think
day.
you have to do your effort too.
You know, I wanted also to mention, you know, even though we didn't go to college, college was not
Out of the picture.
out of the picture for us. But you know, the education we got in high school, I took typing and bookkeeping and shorthand, and boy, I excelled in those subjects, and I got a heck of a good job when I got
That's the
done.
way it was.
And I earned $25 a week.
I remember my first job, I made $26 a week.
My first job, I had 85 cents an hour, I think.
Oh.
CMP.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, working at to elaborate on what my brother said about Mrs. Lane, I think that has a lot to do with it because as I worked at Central Maine Power Companies, I had the opportunity to advance. I was a customer service rep, and I had 7,000 accounts that I did everything with, collections, everything. And they wanted me to go into management, but I never wanted to go into management because I said, once you get into management, the job isn't fun anymore. And I liked working with the customers, walking them off the street. So I could have advanced, and they wanted me to, but I always refused. And
What was Mrs. Lane's first name?
Stella.
Stella.
Stella?
Yeah.
Okay, just in case you do some
And
research.
that
I
means
wanna say-
star.
Yes, Stella, yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Oh, I just have a question, since we have so many one-room schoolhouses in Poland, how did, when you gathered together in Mechanic Falls High School, what was your reaction as far as, did you know all these other kids from other things, or was like, wow, all these people? I mean, what was that feeling when you became a freshman?
I don't know how I reacted.
I felt great.
I think I just fit in.
Mike was in my class, and we
Byron
knew each
was
other
in my
right from the
class.
very beginning, and we there was never, and you correct me on this, Mike, I don't ever remember having any bullying in my class.
No.
People didn't do that back then because you'd take them out in the woodshed.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way you take care of them back then. It wasn't any
What say you?
You had class reunions.
Oh, yes, we still have class reunions.
Yeah. And
Let's see, when we went to Mechanic Falls, I remember the population one year was, my year was 47. And I don't know if it varied probably from freshman to senior, but.
how many do we have in our class, Michael?
I'm thinking it was around 30.
Yeah, that's what I think it was. I think the whole school was 143, was
I
it,
think
something
it was
like
about
that.
a little more than 100,
Wow.
125 when I went to sleep.
Diane, any one person that comes to mind that had a big influence on your early
And
life?
one person
Had an influence on
that
you.
comes to
Other than
mind
the school
that
teachers.
influenced your whole life. Yes, I think I know who you're going to say.
Well, let's see, what would I have
Influenced the whole life.
done? My second marriage, I guess.
Well, yeah, but early, think of early.
Among the town of Poland, somebody
Yeah.
that,
Well, living away from home my senior year taught me a lot,
Yeah.
because I had to work on Saturdays to make my living. You know, she used to give me $5 a week.
Was that Mrs. Welch?
That's right.
Yeah, I think that was her
Yeah,
influence,
yeah. And that's, they were very good to me. Ken and Barbara were very good to me. So
I wasn't quite as lucky. For my work that I got $1. What do you do with $1?
Well, let's see.
but the three
What's it say on my side?
boarded in Mechanic Falls, correct?
Yes,
You
yes.
boarded out to go to
Yeah,
high
yeah.
school then, huh?
some Saturdays she'd take me on the bus to go shopping too.
Into Auburn, Lewiston?
Yeah, bus would stop at Maryland Dennings at 9 o'clock in the morning and take us in town and then bring us back like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So we had a whole day of shopping.
It's a public bus, like a
Yes,
Greyhound?
it
or-
was public transportation.
Out to Poland, or Mechanic Falls, right? So there was never an interurban that came out this way, no trolley
No,
line?
no,
or-
Also, there was a trolley.
There
Well,
was
we
a
did
trolley.
have a
Not
trolley.
Poland, but in Mechanic Falls.
Yeah, okay.
Trolley thing with Mechanic Falls.
And it went down to Hackett's Mill and then on the
Oh,
line.
really? So
Oh,
it
yeah.
obviously, like, I know the interurban came from Lewiston to Portland through Gray. That's well known.
Yeah.
So they tell me there was a trolley line came out of,
Yes.
how did it come out to,
Right Minot Avenue,
Yeah.
right beside the river and all the way to,
no?
how
Come out to Mechanic Falls, it didn't turn around, they just run the trolley backwards and back off.
Puts the seats back, yeah.
yeah,
No place to turn it.
Yeah. What did that trip cost? Like,
geez.
die?
Probably 10 cents.
Really?
How much?
20 cents.
20, oh, that's too much.
That sounds like a lot,
That might
yeah.
have been around the trip.
Yeah.
Around trip, yeah.
Oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention in my life, that I forget this. After I retired in '95 from Central Maine Power Company, my husband and I traveled for about 5 years, and we dipped into the treasury quite a bit. So we decided we had to go back to work. So we had the contract, we won the RFP for Efficiency Maine, and we had the call center in my home, in our home. We had 2 of us worked at it, and we worked from 2003. He died in 2007, So there was both of us then, but I operated it myself from 207 to 212 and Efficiency Maine. So it was a good job and I liked it. It was phone work. It was answering all the calls.
I'm gonna let you folks continue, and I'm gonna go into the kitchen. Maybe I can have Mary or Edie help me. I'm gonna strawberry shortcake. I'm getting out and bring it to you. Who doesn't want them? I guess is the only thing I want to know. They're not that. I didn't oversweeten them, so I'm gonna bring them out for everybody and let's have some strawberry shortcake.
Well, we'll wrap it up if you
No,
want.
you talk forever. I can tell you. I can talk forever. I can tell it won't be a problem. But
I have a question. I saw this picture. It said Elmwood, the Empire Road station called Elmwood Farm Station.
Yeah.
Where,
Glen Torrey's farm.
Yes.
so, where Glen Torrey's house was?
No, right on the sharp corner, right.
Oh, that's where it was?
Well, the old railroad bed runs out past the barn. It's
Ah,
right on the side of the road.
huh.
Steve, isn't there a picture up there somewhere of that?
Yeah, there's a picture of it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's very similar to the picture that's in this
That's the
magazine.
Empire Road Bridge.
Ah.
It's good. Mine came out good too.
Really?
I have, I have titanium.
No, I don't remember the